but applying Veggietales lessons as an adult reminded me when I was years and years ago. My mom told me that, let's see, I'm trying to remember the whole story. She had a friend who had come over who was having some trouble in her marriage, and they were discussing it. My mom, has counseled a lot of people, and while the lady came over, either her children or my mom's grandkids, I can't remember, were watching Veggietales, and it was one of the earlier ones, one about forgiveness. And as they were watching it, this lady, my friend of my mom, was watching it and just going, I guess this means I should forgive my husband, huh? So it's like, yeah, those lessons are applicable as you grow up. It's not just, until you're 5.
Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Kendall, the FDA storyteller, and I am extremely excited and pleased to share with you my interview with Tim Hodge, the voice of Khalil from Jonah, a Veggietales movie, which continues our celebration of the now 20-year-old classic film, and I count myself extremely blessed to have an opportunity to interview Tim. Now, forgive me, this is my first time doing an interview, and I'm not particularly good at it, but I hope you guys are able to pick up some fantastic tidbits of information here. Tim is a wealth of knowledge and tells some amazing stories about the behind the scenes on Jonah from his own perspective, as well as sharing stories from his impressive resume on things like Mulan, Pocahontas, The Lion King. Regardless, subscribe to his YouTube channel. Oh my goodness, I should not have more subscribers than Tim Hodge himself. Show this man some love and get some tips from the guy who made Lyle the Kindly Viking.
A musical pop-up book.
And check out his course on storyboarding, which can be found on Aaron Blaze's website, creatureteacher.com. Just look up storyboarding and you'll find it. Don't know what storyboarding is? It's kind of like a comic book, but most storyboard artists would tell you storyboarding isn't making a comic book. It is telling a story. Check out his course, and if the price is a bit scary, don't you worry, the price will go down any day now. In fact, it was like $5 like a week before I recorded this. So keep your eyes open, check out the course, and I want to see your storyboard someday. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Tim Hodge.
Song helps too.
Well, it's funny. The name of that video on both shows together was "Where's God When I'm Scared," and the Big Idea went through a number of layoffs. You mentioned just mentioning layoffs, and one of the guys before everybody does their goodbye emails to everybody. One guy just wrote, "Has anybody seen my copy of Where's God When I'm Fired?" Oh, pointed but accurate.
Absolutely. Oh man.
Hello. What are you?
Could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, you've probably already announced me as your guest, Tim Hodge. I've been working in animation since 1984, 85. Yeah, 84. I was still doing medical illustration. But yeah, I got started working in television commercials back in Texas, a little bitty studio. There were 3 or 4 people at any given time. Worked there for about 7 years and kept trying to get into Disney. Actually, here there. Before I worked there, I applied to Disney, and I have my rejection letter on Fox and the Hound letterhead, signed by Don Hahn, who was training manager at the time, and now he's super producer over there. I also applied to Don Bluth Productions and got my rejection letter on Secret of NIMH letterhead. So I showed that to Don Hahn once I started at Disney, which is the next step. As I was working on commercials, I kept trying to get into. I want to do feature animation, so I've been applying to Disney, and that was about the time they were opening the Disney MGM studios in Florida, and I guess they were open about. They opened in, I can't remember what year they opened, but I got in 92. So they'd been open 3 or 4 years, and I finally got in and started as an in-betweener on Roger Rabbit cartoon Trail Mix-Up, which was the third and the last one. Then we started on Lion King, where I was an in-betweener with Tom Bancroft, whom you mentioned earlier. So I was on his unit. Tom and I go back way a long time ago. In fact, he doesn't live too far from me. We see each other once in a while. And then I started. I got into animation just briefly, from moving from in betweening to actually animating. I was animating on a film that used to play in Epcot called Circle of Life. It was in the Land Pavilion. It was Pumbaa, Timon, and Simba do this film about how bad theme parks are for the environment. No one got the irony. So, and then animated briefly on Pocahontas, because after I finished on that film, Pocahontas was still in production. I did very little on that one, but it was fun. But then I started gravitating towards storyboards, because back when I was working on the Roger Rabbit cartoon a few years earlier, they were having trouble coming up with the ending, and they asked for anybody got ideas. So I did a few little storyboards and sent them in, and Barry Cook, who was directing, really liked them and said, yeah, we'll keep, if you ever want to go into story, let me know. And I kind of, as much as I loved animating, storyboarding was kind of where it was at for me. And I just kept kind of gravitating toward it. Barry was directing Mulan. And so I'd taken a storyboard test at that time. He said, yeah, if you want to come on out, I have a space for you. So I spent about 3 months, even though I was living in Florida, I worked in Burbank studio, going home every other weekend. And, that was a chore, because that was just being away from your family that long. But then the whole story team moved back to Florida, and we finished production. Of course, at Disney, I was in story on Mulan, Brother Bear, and John Henry. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. And then I was trying to remember. Then about that time, Tom Bancroft suggested I talk to Big Idea and Phil Vischer, because he had been talking to him. So I was like, what the heck? So I talked to him, and things got sparky, and I moved up to Chicago with my family, and we were there at I started there the same day as Tom Bancroft in March of 2000. And then about 2000, troubles hit around 2002. Between 2002 and 2004, the company had several layoffs. It went through a bankruptcy. And the company that bought Big Idea, it's called Classic Media, moved us all to Nashville, south of Nashville. And I had lived in Tennessee as a kid, so I was all, like, yeah, I'd love to go back. So there were, I think, 16 of us that moved down here, out of when the studio at one time was about 200. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I was worked with them here till about 2008, I think it was 2009, and decided I wanted to go freelance and do other stuff besides produce. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing freelance ever since, except for a brief stint back in 2014, I think it was, to 2017. Went back to Big Idea and worked on the Netflix series Veggietales in the House. And once that wrapped, I've gone back to freelance, and that's what I'm doing now. And can't talk about everything because, it's all under NDA. So. Yeah. But I have worked. I did work on Scooby-Doo for a while. What's new Scooby-Doo? Oh, no, Guess Who Scooby-Doo. Mm-hmm. I did I storyboarded the episode with Wonder Woman and with Weird Al Yankovic.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was pretty fun.
I barely missed working on Veggietales in the House, actually. It was done at Bardell, the animation.
Yeah.
I got to Bardell just as they were wrapping up.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like I got there, like, oh my goodness, I'm going to finally work on Veggietales. They're like, well, we're not going to put you on Veggietales. We're going to move you on to, it was a Nickelodeon show, which was eventually Rainbow Unicorn Butterfly Kitty, a show that no one has seen. Because not the industry.
I haven't heard of it.
It honestly existed only to sell toys. So yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned in Bardell too. So Bardell has been around for ages. In fact, when I told you about working on commercials back in the 80s, we would send our cells to Bardell in Canada to paint. They are a cell painting service. That's how long they've been around, and it was fun to work with them in the 80s, and 30 years later, like, oh yeah, I remember you guys. Mm-hmm.
You are a skilled metal worker.
I am a skilled metal worker. I did not know that.
My next question actually is, what were your inspirations in getting into animation?
It started with failing math and English. Not math, math and science. Not almost failing, I should say. I had a real bad year where I just kind of gave up. I didn't want to do it much anymore. And in fact, I spent like a whole a whole quarter, 9 weeks, not doing any of my homework in either class, just because I didn't feel like it. Then my mom found out, and then I realized maybe math and science isn't really for me.
Well, I'm pretty good at lawn darts.
Ping pong. I can play ping pong. Croquette is my speciality.
Where I found my dad's Super 8 movie camera, well, regular 8 movie camera. You wind a spring to make the motor go, and push this button down, and hear it running. And then my dad said, "Oh yeah, and you push the button up, and you can take single frames, and that's how they make animated cartoons." What? I can do that? So that was 7th grade, I think it was, and I spent all summer making, animated cartoons. They're stupid ones, sticks moving and rocks moving, clay, that sort of thing. But the bug stuck, and I wanted to do that forever. And then I found the Walter Foster How to Draw Animated Cartoons book. It's down here somewhere. This book, which is now still in print, but in a much different form.
Yes.
And it was $2 at the time. So, and between that and being able to, make my own films, the bug stuck, and that's what I wanted to do. So, and then a few years later, the Illusion of Life book came out, and I was 18, 19 when that came out. So I just read that over and over and over.
I was like, when you had the Preston Blair book and of course Illusion of Life, both of those I had to buy for school, and I definitely paid more than $2 for them. Oh man!
I think the Illusion of Life was $50 when it came out, and that was almost everything I had in my account at the time.
Besides the fact that we were low on funds, this was a memorable day because he showed up. Jonah.
So 20 years later, if you could change now we're actually asking Jonah questions. I know the whole thing was about Jonah.
Yes, I worked on Jonah. When I interviewed with Phil, in 1999, I went up to Chicago, and he had the whole story, the whole outline of the storyboard, not the storyboard, the outline of the story pinned up to a giant, bulletin board, and a couple of drawings, but most of it was just the story beats. Jonah gets his call here, he goes to this and that and other, and he kind of did a 5-minute pitch of the film, and I said, "So you've got a protagonist that doesn't have an arc. He doesn't change from beginning to end." And he just looked at me like, I call it as I see it. Yeah. But anyway, we hopefully changed that a little bit as the story development went on.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you see the movie from Junior's perspective, technically he's the one that had the arc, right?
Exactly. That's where that kind of, that was my mission, to help bolster up that side of the story, because Jonah's story is kind of boring. And why he gets swallowed by the whale, that's exciting. When you're reading the books about 4 pages in the Bible, that part's kind of cool. But after that, you're just like, yeah. repent. I get it. So
yeah, I was going to ask if there's anything you would like to add or have removed, or if you really want to punch some scene up, but yeah, was there anything that you would like, hey, a little bit more time would have changed this?
Man, it's been so long time since I've seen it. But yeah, I always felt, and as vocal as I was, it was hard to get things changed because you can't change, certain story beats of that. But the film didn't have that roller coaster ride you want in a movie. And that the whole climax where Jonah's just sitting on the hill waiting for destruction that doesn't happen, it's kind of a letdown. That would have worked great in a 15-minute skit, maybe even a half-hour show. But you've invested an hour and a half of time. You want to see something like any end of any film, the big fight scene, or the big chase or whatever at the end. And yeah, sometimes I question the wisdom of that being Big Idea's first feature film, starring, Archibald, who's, a secondary character and one of the more annoying voices that, so.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
And don't worry, we've said all this to Phil, so it's not, I'm not we're still friends.
You found better than that, traveling buddy. It's me.
Oh my.
Oh, but there was one joke near the beginning that Phil hung on to for ages. Oh, it was when the van wrecks and the airbag burst, and I think Dad Asparagus had a line that was like, "Smells like Wisconsin," and Phil thought that was hilarious. But every time I watched a story reel, nobody laughed. It was just dead air, and finally that convinced him after several showings of the film to write a new joke.
Oh, that is a good one. Humor runs very deep in my family.
Yeah, I don't remember what the joke is. I remember they worked hard on getting all the particles in the air and that, because of Mike knew that the airbags were packed in baking soda to keep them from. So he had to keep them from get mildew or whatever. So he made sure that was there. So that's factual. That particle effect is factually based in the world of talking vegetables.
I'm sorry. Like, working in the industry, there's so many moments where I'm like, we work so hard to do stuff that just makes everything just look normal. No one else is gonna notice.
No. Oh yeah, and yeah, I cringe sometimes at those moments. Not just on Jonah, but whenever I hear film where people say, "Oh yeah, we made these whatever look so perfect." Like, nobody saw that.
Oh yeah. I think it was Bugs Life.
That's wasted money. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it was Bugs Life that was like, they entered themselves in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most CG rendered leaves. I'm like, nobody cares. Nobody noticed that.
Now stay calm. We are going around the leaf.
Around the leaf? I don't think we can do that.
So next question, was there a sequence that you were particularly fond of boarding?
Oh man, I remember doing the opening scene, the whole van adventure going down the hill, and that was a lot of fun. Putting in a few extra jokes in it here and there. I did change one joke because Phil had when Bob was getting lost, he was referring to the highway. I don't remember what the number was, but it was one that was near the studio that ran through Naperville and around where the studio was. But it wasn't really funny. I thought, that's why let's make it 99. That way we could turn it to 66 and it could be a joke. We get more laughs in it. So he finally relented, like, okay, another joke. I think more jokes means more ticket sales, Phil. You know this. That's how you built your company.
Oh man, that's amazing.
I'm making it sound like I'm the genius. No, I'm like,
so you made the whole movie.
Just because of that one joke. I'm trying to remember the other ones I worked on. Trying to remember the whole film.
You didn't do the whale part, right? Where the whale actually swallows Jonah, did you?
No, that was, I believe that was Todd Carter who storyboarded that bit. Because there was just a handful of storyboard artists on it. It was me, Todd Carter, Luis Contreras, Tom Owens, and Neil Sternicke. And Neil was a freelancer, but he lived close by, so he was always in there. And I'm just trying to remember who did which sequences. Todd did the last with Jonah sitting on the hill. Everybody got a little bit of the whole thing in Nineveh because it was redone a lot to make it work right. We needed to up the threat and the threat of death there. With the fish, going from fish slapping to the fish of death. I think everybody did a few drawings in that. But yeah, I do remember having a lot of fun in that first opening scene. There was just a lot of action in it. It was a great introduction to the film.
What are we doing?
Now we gotta move on to Khalil.
Sure.
Okay. You mentioned obviously John Henry, you doing the voice of McTavish in that.
Yep. I had come up with this character and I just said, okay, he's a Scottish immigrant, and I would try to do a Scottish accent. And when everything got approved, the storyboards got approved, and then we started talking about who should do the voice. And Mark Henn first thought of Alan oh shoot, Alan Young, I think his name, used to do the voice of Scrooge back in years ago. We weren't sure he was still alive at the time. He was, but then Mark said, well, why Tim's been doing it, why can't he do it? So I thought, I'll do it, sure. So I recorded all the lines. Then they said, oh, the accent's not accurate enough. And this animation had already started at this point to my less than accurate Scottish accents. So they got me in touch with a dialect coach. So we recorded it again to the finished animation. I had, in the booth with the headphones, I had Mark in one ear and my dialect coach in the other, and trying to match lip sync that had already been done. And then it was so accurate, nobody could understand it. So we had to kind of soften it somewhere in the middle. So what was it, like 5 lines of dialogue? It was a lot of work for that. Every year I still get a residual check for like 27 cents. So
nice. So from that into Khalil for Jonah.
Yeah, Phil had written this character that was he said a Pakistani caterpillar, half caterpillar, half worm.
Well, that is only half true. My mother was a caterpillar, my father was a worm, but I am okay with that now.
And he was having a hard time casting the role because he and Mike did all the majority of all the other voices, and but they weren't really carrying it for this one. And Phil wanted to get somebody new, so they looked at a bunch of local actors there in the Chicago area. Even hired a Pakistani pastor to come in and read for it. And obviously he had the accent down right, but his acting chops weren't as comedic as we wanted. And so on a whim, I said, could I try? He's like, sure, we've tried everybody else and they liked it. So I did it. And it hits me now, the more I find out about Pakistan, like Pakistan didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't mentioned in the movie that it was Pakistan. Like that happened in the 1940s when Britain sliced everything up. Anyway, enough politics.
There's a lot of Lawrence of Arabia feeling stuff in Jonah. So no.
That was intentional. That was. I think even the score kind of drifted into that. Na 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 na. More people need to watch Lawrence of Arabia. It's a good movie.
Oh man, one of my friends, that was his favorite film. And the second I watched it, I was like, Jonah Veggietales movie did that shot.
He did references to movies nobody'd seen.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Khalil being technically the voice of God, I put quote unquote, specifically at the end.
Yeah, we didn't have God as a character. Mm-hmm. So he just kind of said the things that God said in the Bible.
So behind the scenes says that like Phil's idea was like Balaam's donkey, God could speak through a donkey. Why can't he speak through a worm? No, am I off?
Well, sort of. Yeah, I think it was like that. He wasn't trying to change, scriptures and God spoke through a worm. It goes back to his edict, I guess, or maxim or rule that in all Veggietales, he would never portray God or Jesus as a vegetable. So there were a couple scenes where they did a manger scene, but it was kids reenacting it. It wasn't the manger scene, and Jesus was never, a pea in a pod or anything. So that extrapolated out. Okay, we've got to have the voice of God, but God, we're not going to speak for God. We're not going to put, do a giant yam in the sky or whatever. And so letting that, it wasn't too much of a shift to let the worm be to voice what God was ultimately saying.
Oh yes, and I'm very grateful. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe God loves everybody, not just you?
Okay. Yeah, I love that sequence. I mean, that's another line that really sticks with me. The whole all my life I wanted to be big and important, but the world doesn't need more people who are big and important. It needs more people who are, let's see if I remember it, compassionate and merciful. That's what I want to be. And especially as somebody growing up in the industry, like I want to go into animation thinking I can make my own movies, I can do my own stuff. That line has always stuck with me, where it kind of harkens back to the verse, "Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life," and
Mhm.
it reminds me to go, okay, hold on. Why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing it for your own glory? Are you doing it for the glory of God? So yeah, that was my little rant on that.
Good rant.
Thank you. Besides Khalil, I mean, you voiced Curly, Blind Lemon Jack Johnson, Lincoln. There we go.
Blind Lemon Lincoln, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
several.
the blues artist, you have to start off with a melody and a fruit and a name of a president. So,
My sweet creamy ice cream. I don't care about no cooking.
I was gonna ask, was there another voice in Veggietales that like, or any voice that you've done that like to you was like, this was my favorite voice to do?
I haven't done enough of it to really have that much of a career. I've done just a handful of voices and usually side characters. So yeah, that's especially when I think about the people who do that for a living, like, nah, I'm not in that league. So it was
Fair
fun
enough.
doing Khalil because yeah, he was really goofy, and especially for the first at least 10 years following the movie, when kids find out, they want you to do lines, and it's fun to entertain them. And yeah, when we were moving too, I've got a stuffed Khalil, with a sound chip in it. So every time the box would shift when we were carrying it, I'd hear my voice, I'm coming, traveling buddy, in the box. Now I'm a ventriloquist.
Nice. Yeah. I guess they just took the sequences from the movie and they put that into the toy, right? You didn't have to re-record your lines.
I think so. Yeah, I don't remember re-recording it. They didn't pay me again, so no. They must have just. Come to think of it, they probably should have. Hey.
Okay, so this is a little bit of a weird question, but I've got to ask it. The film was being made around the time of 9/11. What was the situation? And this is a serious question. I'm sorry if I've
No, that was yeah. Obviously, we all remember where we were when that happened. Yeah, that I was on my way into work when I was listening to everything on the radio and trying to figure out, should I go home? Should I go on in? Like I was already like, and of course nobody knew what was going on, so you didn't know the effects. So we went on in, and within a day or two, that question came up: is this going to be a problem? But it wasn't much of a discussion. Like, no, this the two don't have anything to do with each other, and intelligent people will know the difference. Yeah, there was no association with that by the time it came out, and yeah, it was a brief conversation when it happened that should we be worried about this? And ultimately, no.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Yeah, I was gonna say, I wasn't specifically asking about Khalil, but like the air of how did the studio feel as a whole? Did you guys have like a moment of silence or?
I don't remember anything specific like that. We were all glued to the TV trying to figure out what was going on. The company itself didn't do a lot of in-house prayer situations. It happened from time to time, but it was not the company wasn't it was privately held. It was not a ministry. It wasn't a non-for-profit, and that was Phil was very upfront about saying you don't have to be a Christian to work here. You need to be excited about the mission, and but as long as that holds and you do your work, everybody's cool, because there were a lot of people who were not Christian who worked there, did a great job, and yeah, there was some inner conflict from time to time when somebody with the best of intentions left a track at somebody else's desk who they thought needed it, and then that's when Phil had to get up and said, okay, that's not what we do in the workplace. You can talk, you don't yeah, especially unasked for. Somebody says, tell me more, then tell them more, but don't make this an uncomfortable workplace. But yeah, so I don't remember anything specific, because there were like some after hours, or once a month there was like a company wide, everyone invited, nobody,
No pressure.
please come, but yeah, it's no pressure, and it didn't affect anybody's jobs. But yeah, there were like after hours worship times, or Bible studies, but it was not much happened during the work hours that I recall, like that. Not on a public announcement, everybody come to the conference room to pray, sort of thing. I'm sure it happened, but it was not an official company thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get you. That makes sense.
That makes no sense. That is the message.
You worked a little bit on the Veggietales show, like the most recent one for TBN.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay, because you're credited on IMDb for.
I am, because I saw that, and I think what they've done is they've lifted bits from shows I was in, or I worked on. So because they edited footage that I did direct or did act in. Because I was confused about that too, because I don't always look up my IMDb, but I did recently, and I was like, hey, I didn't work on this. And then I looked at the titles, like, oh, they probably just pulled some footage from Star of Christmas or whatever.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, but you did do.
No, they asked me to, and I was like, I'm kind of done with veggies. Please, no.
So even if they were like, hey, we're doing a brand new show, come on back, you're like, hey, I'm good. Neat.
Okay. Yeah, it would. I think I've drawn enough cucumbers.
Nobody wants to draw me anyway. Happy trails, partner.
Well, there's only so many stories I think you could do. Even when we were doing VeggieTales in the house, we kept, even though we get a new verse to feature each episode, it was the same lesson over and over again. It's like, and yeah, it was a lot of times, like, there are 4 or 5 lessons. Be good, treat other people nicely, and that's what it comes down to. So
there was a lot of backtracking. Things where it's like, well, we just did an episode about lying. We just did an episode about being empathetic and kind. Oh, we just did an episode about greed.
Yeah, even back in the early 2000s. Well, we did one on Lyle was about sharing, but it was right at like 2 or 3 episodes after one about
greed.
About greed. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And somebody asked Phil about it. It's like, this is the other side of the coin. There's like a hair's breadth different in the lesson. But I didn't mind. Lyle was a fun story.
Oh, dude, what you got an Annie Award nomination for that one? I mean,
for Lyle, did I know he got something.
Okay, I'm editing this and I realized something, and I'm recording this with a bit of a cold, so pardon me. If you pay attention to the Wikipedia, it will say that Lyle the Kindly Viking was nominated for an Annie Award. However, it's a citation needed. So I went and looked up on the Annie Award website. It looks like it wasn't nominated at all. Star of Christmas was, which was also directed by Tim Hodge, but not Lyle the Kindly Viking. And of course, he was nominated for one for the voice of Khalil. Just a little bit of information there.
I know I got an Annie nomination for the voice of Khalil.
Yeah.
And that was what, 2002. Yeah, we went, took my family there. We got to see some old friends at the awards, but I was up against Veggietales, who done Lilo and Stitch, and oh shoot, I'm forgetting the actor's name, who did Captain Hook in Return to Neverland.
Oh, that wasn't Jim Cummings.
Dude, I've forgotten his name. He was recreating the original voice, from the 50s thing, but Veggietales got it.
Wow. Yeah. No offense, but
None taken.
They deserve it. Yeah. And okay. And of course I have to ask, I know you're doing your storyboard program now online.
Yes.
And of course you just have your YouTube
my commercial. Yeah. Go to creatureartteacher.com for my storyboarding for television lessons. I also have some basic drawing lessons, more geared for younger artists. But yeah, I've got got a few over there. And my friend Aaron Blaze, who I worked with at Disney for a number of years, it's his site. He's got dozens of lessons for drawing and painting, and several of us who worked with him before, put up lessons. So yeah, check it out, creatureartteacher.com. Nice. And he's usually running a sale. So
yeah, no, I bumped into Aaron Blaze a couple years back. He came to my college and was talking about Brother Bear and stuff like that too. Raja the tiger from Aladdin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, he just did a sale. Like I think I got like a bunch of his stuff for like $20, like a bunch of his videos about animation. I was like, oh my goodness, this is
yeah.
Y'all don't know what gold this is.
Yeah, if it's pricey, just wait a couple weeks. He'll usually do a sale. Back during when the pandemic first hit, most everything was $1, and sales were good, and it was kind of sad that to think like, oh my goodness, there's sales are going up during this horrible time, but it was benefiting everybody. That people were getting great art lessons for $1, so that was good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. If there's anything you'd like to say before we wrap up.
I got to do a commercial for my lessons, so that's
that's fantastic, dude. I will remember to not only highlight that, but let other people.
Can I give you my Venmo account and everybody could just send me a dime or something?
There's no promo code. I can go to. Oh man.
No, thanks for inviting me. This has been fun, and I wish I remembered more, but some of it was, that was 20 something years ago. Well, 20 years ago when Jonah came out.
Mm-hmm.
A fun film, and we're sad it didn't do better on its first release. So
it's okay. It left an impact.
It breaks.
And that, my friends, was my interview with Tim Hodge. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, check out creatureteacher.com if you want to go off and sign up for his course on storyboarding, as well as continue to watch my channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe at FDA Storyteller here on YouTube. Anyway, guys, I got more Jonah stuff to do. So this is the FDA Storyteller signing